Yeah. Okay, hello. This is Simchat Yeshua Messianic Fellowship, and this is our Wednesday study in Galatians, which we're getting pretty close to wrapping up, but we still have a few more weeks before we're done. My name's Gene. This is, like I said, Simchat Yeshua Messianic Fellowship, and going to wait a few minutes until everybody who wants to get in can get in. In the meantime, let me explain a few things. The congregation name, you've already heard a couple times, is Simchat Yeshua Messianic Fellowship. That is spelled SIMCHATYESHUA. And the reason I'm explaining that to you is our website, if you want to get onto it, is simchatyeshua.org. And if you want to see our Facebook page, it's Simchat Yeshua. Now, let me do some of my YouTube shtick, and to like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell so that you can be notified when we go live. If you like what like what you see, you can always go on to the channel site, and we have all the studies between the beginning of Galatians all through to now. We also have some of the old prayer services and Sabbath services back from when we were not meeting physically due to the pandemic restrictions. We are meeting on Sabbath now at our old place, and so if you want to look up on that, it's the information's on our website. Also, the handouts we have, this is Galatians 6b, is our segment for today, and that should be on our website. You can download it, or perhaps on our Facebook page. Anyways, funny thing is, I hardly ever go on Facebook any longer, so it's if something's going on there, I don't know. Someone else is watching the Facebook page there. So if you are interested in the congregation, you can look up some stuff on our website. If you like to contribute something to help further along this channel or the congregation, there's a link that you can use on the website to help us along, and that would of course be greatly appreciated. So let me think. That's pretty much it for all my introductory stuff. Let's go ahead and take a look at our study in Galatians. Let's move on to that. Actually, let me get over to here. There we are. All right. Like I said, we're winding down in Galatians. In fact, most of the heavy theological work is pretty much done at this point as far as what Paul was covering. So I'm going to try to truncate some of that so we can get through this without a long sidestep. In brief, the letter to the Galatians was written because Jewish believers who were Pharisees came down to the Galatian region from Jerusalem, claiming to be representatives from the main congregation. That's where you get the phrase in the letter of James, because James was the head of the congregation at that time. And they came with the message that you must be Pharisees in order to be acceptable to God. You cannot be in the family of God unless you are Pharisees. Shaul had no small objection to that. In fact, in Acts 15, you can see the objection that occurred immediately when the Pharisees stood up to say, you cannot be saved unless you're a Pharisee. That was immediately stopped. And then they came back with, okay, Gentiles can be saved, but they have to become Pharisees anyways. And again, that was declined. And that's the Jerusalem Council really established two sets of rules as for Gentiles coming in. First one was to clean up their pagan act enough to where they can be acceptable in the congregation. And that's the four items that are listed in verses 19 and 20. But then in verse 21, you have the statement, "For Moses is read in every synagogue and every Sabbath day." Okay, that's not an exact word-for-word quote. I never get it right. If for some reason in my brain, that's the only way I can say it. So I just can't quote it. Anyways, the point is, clean up your pagan act enough to get into a synagogue and then start learning. And that's how we, in my congregation, in our congregation, how we deal with Gentiles coming in. If you want to come to learn, you're welcome to come and learn. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything immediately. There are people that come for weeks, months, years, then finally, they'll come to me and say, all this time I've been coming here and I haven't been kosher, but suddenly God's telling me I need to be kosher. And that's cool because, that all happens at God's timing. All right. That's one item. Another item is the use of the word law in Paul's writing, Shaul in Hebrew. In relation to Galatians, there's at least 4 different ways now that that the word law is used with different meanings, but it's all some derivation of the root word nomos. So when you look at it, it's translated as law. You're thinking, well, which law? The thing you have to ask yourself is, which law is Shaul talking about when he uses it? Because he uses the word law when he's talking about Torah. That's God's commandments. Torah literally means instruction, but it's used to represent the first 5 books, wherein is the bulk of God's instructions and commandments. By extension, anything that teaches God's way is called Torah, which could mean the entire of the Tanakh, what is generally referred to as the Old Testament, although that's inaccurate. And you can even apply that to an extension to the New Testament, even and that term was also inaccurate. But anything that teaches God's instructions, ways, commandments, lifestyle, that could all be considered Torah. Okay? And so sometimes Paul uses the word law to mean Torah. Other times he uses it as part of a phrase meaning something different, like the works of the law. It's not talking about doing the commandments of God, but rather it is the rules of the Pharisees, the things the Pharisees demand of you that are over and above what is written in God's commandments. And so it's called the works of the law. There's also the law of sin and death, the soul that sins it shall die. And there's also the law of the, we just did it last couple of weeks ago, and now I can't even remember what it is. The law, there is the law of the law of the members that war within us. In other words, our own fleshly desires is called a law as well. So, only one instant we're talking about God's commandments. So when you read the word law, especially in the Brit Hadashah, that's Hebrew for what is commonly mislabeled as New Testament, you have to stop and think, which version of law are they talking about? Because it doesn't always refer directly and only to God's commandments. Okay, sometimes it does, but not always. So you have to look at context. Context will derive your interpretation. The next word that is often at odds is circumcision. Okay, there are in the letter to the Galatians, there are 2 ways circumcision is used. You have the biblical commandment of circumcision, which is, of course, for a boy baby They are to be circumcised on the 8th day. Rain or shine, no matter what, they're going to be circumcised on the 8th day. However, the circumcision that Paul usually refers to when he's talking to the Galatians is that is the conversion to becoming a Pharisee. Okay, the Gentiles in the Galatian region were subjected to this notion that you can't possibly be right with God unless you are a Pharisee, or you can't possibly be part of the family because you're not good enough being a Gentile. You have to become a Pharisee. And this is part of the underlying arguments that Shaul is arguing against. And so, to make a short story long, you go through the conversion process. You are the last things you do is you do a baptism, tevilah, the ritual of baptism. You go down a Gentile, you come up a new creation as a Jew, and then, of course, because this is what Torah says, as a new creation, if you're a male, you need to have a circumcision sometime within those next 8 days. That's what tradition says. And so that's the circumcision that Paul is talking about for the most part when he's talking in Galatians. He's not as much referring to the biblical commandment of circumcision, but the Pharisaic and also modern rabbinic Orthodox interpretation of having a circumcision after you had that mikveh, that baptism. Okay. And that's what he's talking about. And what Paul is saying is that completes the process. But if you do this because holding your word, keeping your word is so important to God, that if you make a promise to be a convert to Pharisaism or to Orthodox, then you are obligating yourself to keep all of it and to follow absolutely everything they tell you you're supposed to do. And that's the problem. It's very, very difficult. They add so much stuff to the lifestyle with non-biblical rules and laws, and so that's part of the laws that Paul is against in his writing, and that's why he was dead set against people making a conversion, okay, because you promise to follow all the man-made rules, and sometimes that's in place of God's given commandments. Okay, so we get into chapter 6. Most of that heavy discussion is over. Then we get into some general closing statements and so on. And we're going to start in verse 6 for our text, but I want to take a running start at it. We're going to start at the beginning of chapter 6. Let me read through this. And then we'll jump into verse 6. We'll read the text, and we'll come back and start working on the study. So you'll notice the font keeps getting larger and larger because my eyes are just not wanting to cooperate these days. So if I sound really choppy and misreading a lot of stuff, it's because I'm doing the best I can with what I've got right now. Okay, so let's get started. Chapter 6, verse 1. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Bear one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks himself to be something, when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For each one shall bear his own burden. Okay, that's our text from last week. This is just sort of getting a running start into our text for this week. We're going to go through verse from 6 to 10 tonight. If you want to pick up on any of the prior studies, if you want to look at what we talked about in these first 5 verses, you can pull it off the website or maybe find it on the Facebook page. Okay, verse 6. Oops, I went too far already. Okay. Let him who is taught the word share in all good things with him who teaches. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. Okay, so that's our text for today. And let me get over to where, there we are, onto our page here. And this particular format here, you should be able to find on the website or on the Facebook page. And I really don't look at any of them, either one of those much, so I'm not sure if they're showing up or not. But I prepare these ahead of time, and maybe a little bit ahead of time, so they should be up and ready to go by now. Anyways, so if you don't find it, try it again in a couple days, and maybe it'll be up by then. Okay, so and you notice that this is sort of the way on. You're probably seeing my screen. It might be a little bit tight and oversized on what you're seeing, but this is kind of necessary for me. I had to expand this one on a little bit further because I was having so much time reading last week. So hopefully I can stumble my way through this. So here we go. Now the fruit of the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Out of James 3:18. Okay, this is just sort of a preface on the whole concept. Verse 6: Let him who is taught the word share in all good things with him who teaches. Okay, this is Jewish New Testament translation, and then what follows is Englishman's Greek New Testament. Let's share him being taught in the word with him that teaches all good things. I use this one just because I like the word for word syntax. My Greek is terrible, and I kind of like just looking at the way the syntax lays out, just in case there's something in the syntax that gives an idea of how to translate it. Translate the text, even if the English syntax would lay out differently. Okay. The workman is worthy of his hire. It is proper, but should not be demanded, to pay for receiving instruction. Matthew 10:10, Mishle Proverbs, and others. Do not charge for teaching Torah, a drash, which is a commentary on Yeshayahu, Isaiah 55:1-3. Okay, it's an old rabbinic understanding that one should not use Torah as a shovel, meaning you should not use your knowledge of the Torah to make money. Now, in modern times, that's completely overlooked. For example, in my congregation, I've needed to provide to people on occasion a letter to their employer telling them why the employer needs to give our congregation member the Sabbath off so they can attend services. Okay, and I'm happy to write that letter. I have a pre-made form, so I just plug in names and stuff, and that I've never had that come back with a further argument. So it's been successful. Now the difference is if you went to a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, he'd charge you for writing that letter. And I don't know if it's $100 or $200 or whatever. I don't keep track of that, but I don't charge. And so if you find that you've been benefited from that, then hey, what happened here? That was my timer to let me know it's time to start. For some reason, the silly thing doesn't want to just shut off. Anyways, so the point is, And this is the reason I really want to make a case of this is so many times you go to a congregation and half the service is taken up with begging for money. This should not be. It is not proper to ask to get paid to provide education, spiritual education, and leadership and guidance. However, it is an understanding, and it's stated right here that the one who receives instruction on a spiritual level should give something in return on a physical level. And I don't want to get long on this. It's not something I'm hugely comfortable telling people, because the last thing I want to do is give you the impression that you must pay me for this, or that, as some people would say, God's work can't continue unless you donate to me. So, which is, foolishness. So, um, I don't want to delve too much into that, but just understand that that is an expectation, but I'm not going to be the one to demand it. So, if you feel God is asking you to contribute, wonderful. Um, and if you want to contribute just because you've learned something, fine. Um, you know, Actually, as far as the congregation finances go, I never see the money. I never handle the money. I have no idea, except when we have board meetings. When the treasurer gives us an idea of how much money's in the bank, what's gone out, and what's come in, what's gone out. Um, I have no idea, and I'm perfectly happy to be blissfully ignorant of that. The last thing I want to do is have in the back of my mind when I'm talking to somebody, whether or not they've donated, and if so, how much. Because that would color that. It's not supposed to, but that would color my reaction to somebody, and I don't want that. I want to deal with everybody completely opposite, outside of any kind of financial support that person might be giving or not giving to the congregation. Okay, enough said on that. Let's move on. Um, okay, commentary from Dr. Stern. Uh, Teachers of the good news are to be supported by their fellow believers. But Shaul himself made use of his entitlement only when he was certain that his doing so would not bring um, would not inhibit response to the gospel itself. Okay, and so you see where Shaul took occasion to not take support. Not that he never did, but there are times where he even worked with his own hands, just so people wouldn't be negative to him about that. Okay, another commentary. If Paul had fathered the Gentile Galatians in faithfulness, it is upon them to acknowledge their debt by providing their discipleship to him. Okay, if we sowed spiritual things to you, it is it too much if we should reap material things from you? Rhetorical question out of 1 Corinthians 9:11. Okay, and this sort of continues and will shortly complete this idea. Within the context of being, what went wrong here? Okay, oh, I see what I did. Hold on a second, let me straighten this out. Okay, now let me see. Clear that out. Okay, try this. Within the context of being content to walk with Yeshua as a Gentile, or making conversion to Pharisee or orthodox, there is a danger the Pharisee or orthodox um, will will take all they can from the new converts, having some leaving some destitute. And I've seen this on occasion, where people have tried to make conversion to Orthodox, and they just take all their money until they have no money left, and they're still left kind of out in the cold. One of the downsides of making a conversion, which they really won't tell you right up front, is that even if you make a conversion and they accept you as a Jew in the community, they still won't trust you. They still won't completely have faith in your sincerity. Too many times Gentiles have converted for shallow reasons, as if they're going to, convert all the Jews to a Christian point of view by them being there, or that they're there for financial reasons, thinking that once you become part of the tribe, suddenly you have this inside business connection that suddenly makes you wealthy and wise. But and then when people realize it's not so much the case, they'll just drop away, and they don't have the effect they think they have. So Matthew 23, verse 24 says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore you will receive greater condemnation." Okay. The proper interpretation for devouring widows' houses is understood in taking a widow who is short on money, running out of money, giving them a loan based on their property, wait till they can't pay the payment schedule, and then confiscate their property and kick them off the property, leaving them totally destitute to just simply freeze and starve to death without caring whatsoever about them, and using the leverage of having money to make this happen. Okay, so the idea in this is within the context of sharing all the good things, is to be good to one another. That's really the point here. Okay, a little bit off topic, but that's okay. Writing in a straightforward manner, Paul went on to call the written word of Yehovah, that's a generic. Actually, Yud-He-Vav-He is the specific personal name of God, usually translated in English as Lord. This particular commentator thought they wanted you would understand that this is the actual personal name of God, so it's Yud-He-Vav-He. Paul went on to call the written word of Yehovah good, as opposed to classifying the oral traditions of his Pharisaic opponents as something other than good. On this premise, it makes sense that Paul would say to his audience that he who bears the word become a partaker with he who teaches all good things. Here, Paul may be hinting at sharing material benefits with those who teach Torah, okay, which is actually what he's talking about, the actual direct plain context. And the idea is your attention, your allegiance, and your support should be to those that teach you. Especially the ones that are laboring, that is bearing the burden. Okay, bearing the burden is everything from taking the time and effort to study and prepare, going out to the hospitals for the visits, praying over people, and all that kind of thing that leaders often do. And that's you know, that comes that you know, from my point of view, it comes with the job. You know, if you know somebody's in the hospital or someone's family or even people they know are in the hospital or something, I'll be there. You know, and done that many times. So you know, and that's okay. And I don't do it without I do it without charging. I don't do it with, you know, only for a paycheck because I don't, you know, I don't make a charge for that. So um, just understand, you know, that's available. Now, if you are in Des Moines and I'm in California, it's not going to work very well for me to run out. But for local trips, I'm there. Okay. Another point of view, um, and this is the long phrase in Greek. I'm not even going to try to write it down. I think the time I put that in there my first time around, as I was under the assumption I was learning my way through learning how to pronounce Greek. Except I didn't do a transliteration, so I can't even guess at it. Okay, communicate who bears is taught the word to those who hears taught. Okay, okay, those who hears or is taught. The alternative rendering is believers who hear the word should look after the needs of other bearers. Okay, this matches well with the context of the verse. Okay, possibly it means the Pharisees were offering needed help and support with the Galatian Gentiles, but only if they converted to Pharisaism and took their circumcision. Paul's response to remind the Galatians they have a responsibility uh, to see each other, to see each member through their hard times, and thus reap the heavenly reward for their selflessness. Okay, you can see that the text is going in two directions. One is a simple, direct forward physical. If you are being taught by someone, you should support that person in some sort of physical manner. The other one is bearing one another burden. Bearing one another's burden also has an inflection of helping somebody through whatever temptations or sins they're being beset by at that time. Okay, and then verse 7 kind of continues that idea. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Englishman's Greek New Testament says, Be not misled. God not is mocked. For whatsoever may sow a man, that also he shall reap. Okay. There's a certain Star Wars character I always hear in the back of my head when I'm reading the Englishman's Greek text. Shaul is going in two directions at the same time. First, continuing verse 6, um, sowing to your spiritual betterment leads greater holiness, as stated to the ultimate goal, eternal life, and saving your flesh. Sorry, and sowing to your flesh just gets you more flesh, that is more sin. Okay, and then so in other words, sowing, supporting somebody who's teaching you the good news and teaching you halakha, how to live a holy life before a holy God, um, it benefits you to do so as well, because you're supporting the one who's giving you that message. The second part of it is going back to the prior message. Obedience to Torah uh, makes for holiness and confirmation of eternal life, while falling into the trap of Pharisaism reaps spiritual decay. Okay, and so you have a juxtaposition of these 2 points in point number 2. Um, Pharisaism reaps, that is sowing to the flesh, reaps spiritual decay. Now, how is becoming a Pharisee, or in modern terms, becoming orthodox, sows to the flesh? Because it sows to your pride. It sows to your sense of you are making yourself better than others. And that's actually what is taught. Not necessarily always immediate and direct and plain, but it does come out frequently enough that you'll pick up on it, that you are to be considered superior to others if you learn the Pharisee way or the Orthodox way. And you're not going to be like those goyim. Okay? And then last little bit of commentary. The law of the harvest is not only that a person reaps what he sows, whether good or bad, but that the harvest is always greater than the planting. 30, 60, or 100 times as much as hinted at in Matthew 13, 8 and 23. Okay. That's it for verse 7. Let me take a quick look here. If anybody's saying hello. Hello! Okay, I'm missing. Where am I here? Okay. Shalom, Seth. Shalom, Ruhama. Good. Good to see you guys. Let me get back to our thing. Okay, if you have any questions, you do have a text box there you can work with. Don't be afraid to put any questions, comments, rebukes that come to mind. I do take all comers when it comes to questions, comments, and rebukes. However, the written format isn't as quick for you to ask a question. So if I can remember, I'll keep checking back there and seeing if you have something. Okay, verse 8. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Englishman's Greek. For he that sows to his own flesh, from the flesh shall reap corruption, but he that sows in the Spirit, from the Spirit shall reap life eternal. Okay. Reaping what one sows was a familiar image in antiquity. Paul elsewhere used sowing as a monetary image, such as 2 Corinthians 9:6, as did some other ancient authors. Thus here he taught, he might continue the thought of 6:6. Okay. So how do we sow to the Spirit? By doing good towards all men. That's a commentator's comment. By doing good. Okay. Doing what is good. The basic rule of doing good is, do unto others as you would have them do to you. That which is offensive to you, do not do to another. And a rabbinic commentary is to guard the honor of your neighbor as more dear than your own. So that's an excellent point of view. Okay, verse 9. And let us not grow weary. Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Okay, Englishman's Greek. New Testament says, but while doing we should not lose heart, for in time due we shall reap, not fainting. Okay. Okay. While the majority of commentators continue to see this verse a further general ethical exhortation, it may well be that Paul is reflecting here the development of the tradition whereby tzedakah, which means righteousness, designates charity. Okay. Tzedakah is a common word in the synagogue. It's the the box where you put money that's designated to helping the poor, to helping people in need. In our congregation, it's that little silver metal tin, kind of round metal tin, cylindrical, I should say, with a round top. Little silver metal tin. And anything that goes in there is set aside only for helping people in need. We don't touch it for anything else. And the nice thing is it gives the congregation the opportunity to be very helpful to people that are in need, without having to embarrass people by making a public statement in the congregation that these people are in need and we all should help them. And we don't embarrass them with that. We try to keep it quiet so that they're not embarrassed by being in a position of lack. Okay. So, we will reap if we do not lose heart. We must continue to resist the temptation to conform to the traditions of men, for the sake of seeking acceptance. Okay, such as in Matthew 24, 9 through 13. Okay, hang in there. If we do not lose heart, and continue to do good, we will reap good rewards. Okay. Let me double check, see if anything new is here. Okay. Verse 10. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. Okay. And the Englishman's Greek. So then, as occasion we should work good towards all, and especially towards those of the household of faith. Okay. Especially to the family of those who are trustingly faithful. This is Dr. Stern's translation there and his commentary. Love for neighbor means even love for enemies and for and for the unlovable. Okay, such as Luke 10, 30 to 39. The parable of the Good Samaritan of Yochanan, John 13, 14 to 34, 35. That's the lesson of the parable. Yeshua enjoined his followers to love one another as I have loved you. Such love only believers can give and receive, since it grows out of having the Holy Spirit. Okay. Especially the household of faith. I would like to point out that phrase needs to be a household of faith, or to those who are trustingly faithful. In context of the letter to Galatians, he's talking about we need to be especially focused on fellow believers. Now, according to Paul's terminology, the Pharisees of his day were not the faithful because they were basing their relationship with God on their works of keeping track of all the rules that the Pharisees piled on to the commandments of God. Therefore, their actions are not actions of faith, but actions of self-interested works righteousness. Okay, so the family of faith then are those Jews and Gentiles who have not embraced Pharisaism or left Pharisaism for the true, pure religion of walking in God's commandments without the piles of man-made rules and instructions. Okay, verse 10 commentary. Oh wait, I just did that. Sorry, never mind. Okay, moving on. Beginning with a specific point, support for a worthy leader or teacher, Shaul then expands the concept of charity to include all who need it and our heavenly reward for having one eye, which is found in Matthew 6:22. Actually, yeah, 22 and 23. The lamp of the body is the eye. Therefore, if therefore your eye is good, in the text it should say single, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad or divided, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Okay, and this has to do, by the way, in the Sermon on the Mount, you have the eye is the lamp of the soul, and if your eye is good, you'll have your whole body will have light, be full of light. Okay, that doesn't make sense unless you understand the context. In the translation, they say if your eye is good, but the meaning is if your eye is single. Okay, if your eye is single. Okay, and thus, when you say that, what it means is it goes back to the Torah, talking about your eye being single, and it has to be in the context. It has the context of looking on your poor neighbor or brethren, and with your looking upon them, acting to help them. In other words, your actions are one with God's commandment. Don't look past your poor brother. Don't look the other way, but surely you shall look upon them, and surely you shall help them. Okay? And so that's the single eye that they're talking about. Okay? And then by contrast, if your eyes are bad, meaning it's not single, but you're looking away from your brother in need, you will have darkness because you are not living by God's command. Okay. That's actually it for our text for the day. Let me swing back over here. Any other? Whoa. Okay, somebody ran out of space here. Okay. All right, Seth, let me get through this and see if I can give you an answer. Restoring them in a spirit of gentleness. I am curious to know what everyone thinks this looks like. Okay, in the context of somebody who's caught up in a sin, the gentleness there is to not think yourself superior and thus look down on them and speak harshly to them or belittle them for being caught in such a sin. In the context of the overall context of the letter, I think it has as much to do with being caught up in a fault that is, joining Pharisaism or trying to become orthodox in modern context. But you, the true believer, should restore them to a true faith and walk in the scriptures, what the scriptures teach, and not getting filled up and misdirected by all the man-made rules. Okay, that's my two shekels on that. But in either case, you who are spiritual are to restore, that is, bring someone back to a right understanding and practice with meekness and humility. Okay. Okay, next one. And loving one another. I know many people, I'm sorry, this is tiny lettering, so I'm going slow. Even at Simchat Yeshua, suggest love might be the kindness you expect in the West. Okay, a Western version of kindness. Yeah, I can see that to some degree. It's the culture with which we are familiar, so it's easy to think that that's the version of kindness the Bible speaks of. But I don't necessarily see a huge diversion between our cultural understanding of kindness than what the biblical exhortation for kindness. But let me finish one of your other comments, because maybe what I think you're trying to mean or what I think you're going for, you'll explain here. So let me read the rest of it. I often hear phrases, those Christians or ways of speaking to that to me seem mocking or hateful, or at least it doesn't sound nice to me. Yeah, you have a point. We should always be patient, gentle, kind, and loving with people that are confused and mistaught. It doesn't mean from time to time someone might get frustrated and short-tempered, um, and especially for people who are relatively new in the walk and they're seeing a strong dichotomy about what they were taught and what they're now learning. Um, there can be some frustration there, and some of the people in our congregation are still actively in discussion with people from their old congregations and still constantly being in this conflict. So, as far as learning to walk properly versus what they were taught before. And so, yeah, you have a point. You are correct to point out we shouldn't be hostile, but then sometimes it does come out, and sometimes you speak out of frustration or impatience or something, and it's not necessarily always helpful. But those of us who are more spiritual can be more flexible to not take it so immediate, as an insult, and um, cautiously and politely remind somebody that outbursts of anger and frustration don't necessarily win people. Okay. Um, and in my case, sometimes I look right past it because I'm more concerned with answering what is being discussed following those derogatory comments, and I don't always pick back up and come back and explain. Okay. Then sorry for the wall of text. That's okay. I appreciate your response. The delay makes it kind of hard to respond. Perhaps this was a bad place to ask. It's not a bad place. It just doesn't happen as timely as you'd like. Thank you for so much. You're quite welcome. And I appreciate you coming and asking the questions. Okay. That's actually it for our study. Any other questions, comments, rebukes? And Seth, you don't have to apologize for saying something like that. This is yeshiva, okay? And sometimes you disagree, and sometimes you don't always disagree in a calm and sane fashion. But that's okay. Iron sharpens iron. So, and if you find a point with which, is that you see as a difficulty, it's not harmful to mention it, only be careful, how you bring it out, that uh, you're not being disparaging to the people that are being accused of being disparaging. if you follow me on that. Okay. Any other questions, comments, rebukes? If not, I'm going to start closing down for the day. Since we do have a delay, I'm going to not close the whole session for a couple minutes after I'm done talking, just so I can be sure that everything makes it out onto the recording. So once again, this is Simchat Yeshua Messianic Fellowship. My name is Gene. You can reach us online at simchatyeshua.org. That's SIMCHATYESHUA.org. That's our website, and we also have a Facebook page, Simchat Yeshua. At least for now, Facebook hasn't taken us down or, as far as I know, hindered our place in our reach. But anyways, if you're interested in, you can come to shul on Sabbath. We still have a couple nights left of Hanukkah, so go have a party, light some candles, and eat way too much sweets and fried foods. Um, you know, that's why God gives us 6 days to diet and exercise. Anyways, that's pretty much it. If you want to support the congregation or this channel, you can donate through our website. Go over and take a look at it, um, and then can take care of things that way. Okay. Any other last questions, comments, or rebukes? Otherwise, I'm going to go quiet for about 2 minutes, and then we'll close this whole thing. All right. So shalom. God bless you. Um, we'll see you Shabbat, God willing. And if not, we still have a couple weeks left on Galatians, and then we'll be off to a new topic as soon as I figure out what I'm doing. Okay. Somebody suggested halacha, and that might not be a bad idea. I can try to do a shorter, lighter version because it was a whole big long sessions of what I did when I first did it. So we'll see what I can do to truncate it and get it into more manageable pieces. All right, shalom, God bless you, and we'll see you Shabbat, and we'll see you next week right here, 6 o'clock on California time on Wednesdays. Shalom. All right, that's it. Shalom. God bless you.